Hello there, YouTube. I am Necrostevo, and thank you for joining me today on battle number 2 in stage 2 of PPL NX. Our next opponent is going to be up against Travesty and the Canberra Toucannons, so please go check out their information in the description. I assure you, you will enjoy your time. Travesty is one of the coolest opponents that I've seen battle, and I've wanted to battle him for quite a while now, so I was very excited for the opportunity. First, let us review Travesty's team. You can see here that Travesty will have access to Gouging Fire, Iron Treads, Tornadus Therian, Araquanid, Ursaluna in its Blood Moon form, Ogrepawn, Iron Hands, Gardevoir, Hisuian Quillfish, and Charmander, with his Terra Captains being the Hisuian Quillfish, the Araquanid, and the Charmander. So you can see that in their team building, they went with the same approach that we did, 2 Terra Captains, and then load up on power the rest of the way. For our team, we have brought to this match a Trailblazing Ogrepawn, a very defensive Primarina once again, but this is a fast defensive Primarina. I did not want the situation of Iron Hands with this, so very fast Primarina. I have a fully defensive Terra Palisand, and we have a Mystic Water Brave Birding Quaquaval in order to hit the Araquanid, and then we will finish it off with our Banded Meowscarada and Iron Defense Body Press Light Screen Draco Arcaludon. So we've got a cool, interesting couple sets on a few things there. I do like the matchup of Ogrepawn versus Ogrepawn. Always an enjoyable duo to have up against each other there. Gone are the days where one person can draft Ogrepawn and have access to all 4 forms, because that was insanity, and I'm happy I don't have to worry about that. Thinking that in this matchup, our opponent will want to lead off with the Araquanid, I tried to call that and lead out with my Palisand, but I don't know why I'm getting ahead of myself here. I tried to call that and lead out with my Quaquaval, excuse me, but not wanting to take an electric move or really any move from the Iron Hands, we are going to swap out into Palisand on the Iron Hands. I could have gone for a close combat here, but it just really didn't seem worth it. Iron Hands is so bulky that I'm not going to do that much damage, and I would just lose my Quaquaval for my trouble. I did expect a Volt Switch, which is why I went out to Palisand at that point, but my opponent just hard swaps and goes out to the Araquanid, and I was like, oh, well, bully. That's kind of what I wanted in the first place. So I get to get up my Stealth Rocks here. I also am going to Terra because I don't want to take a Water Bubble boosted Liquidation or whatever water type move he might want to go for. And I definitely was doing all this with the thinking that he was Water Bubble. For those of you who don't know, Araquanid can have either Water Absorb as the ability, which negates the water type move in exchange for giving you a little bit more of your HP back, or it can have Water Bubble, which boosts the power of your water type moves and also has the power of fire type moves against you while preventing you from being able to be burned. So he does not Terra immediately, and so we get to get up our Stealth Rocks as he gets to get up some Sticky Webs there. So here, thinking, okay, he didn't Terra immediately, so maybe I can go in here and spin these away, or threaten a very nice Brave Bird here if he wants to stay in. But he shows Infestation, which kind of confused me. I was like, oh, okay, so maybe he's like Infestation, Protect, Sticky Web, and a Water move. But that wouldn't really be able to touch my Palisand, so I was a little bit confused to see the Infestation there. He does go ahead and Terra here, which will prevent my Rapid Spin. I actually clicked Aqua Step expecting him to Terra at this point, and thinking that the Aqua Step would do better damage than my Brave Bird, but he is Water Absorb, so this set basically completely walls my Quaquaval, and there's not a lot I can do here. Now, I had Metronome on my Quaquaval at one point in team building, and I really wish I had kept it on there, because it would have been very useful here. Huh. Someone just rang the doorbell. Well, thanks to that interruption, I completely lost my train of thought. Where the heck were we? I believe we were getting infested by the Araquanid. Oh, so for those of you who don't know, infestation, it traps your opponent on the turn that you use it, and then they just take a little bit of chip damage at the end of each turn, and you can't switch out while it's going on. So here I am really happy that I had Brave Bird, because if I didn't, I would literally not be able to touch it if I only had my basic stats of water and fighting. And yeah, one thing I did notice about my opponent's nicknames is that they all have to do with different people or flora or fauna or history things in New Zealand. So be sure that you're keeping an eye on those, because I thought that some of them were pretty cool. We are at the end of our infestation period, and so I could swap out here, but to what end? I really thought that I would be able to do more damage than I was doing to the Araquanid and be able to spin and get rid of the sticky webs at some point, but that does not look like it's going to happen. With that in mind, I decided to just stay in and go for Brave Bird one final time, because I thought that I could live the recoil, but he has the Custap Berry, and one more infestation means that I don't think any recoil here is going to be low enough for me to be able to live my own recoil from the Brave Bird. So while we do get to take out the Araquanid, he really gets the better end of this double down. And that is because he has his sticky web up, and that's going to stay up for the rest of the battle. So that sucks. Every time my Pokemon come in, they're going to have their speed lowered by 1 stage. And we can see that happen right here as I go out to my Ogerpon, and he goes out to his Iron Hands, and Sticky Web lowers my speed. Now, Iron Hands is pretty slow, and so I was curious if I could still outspeed it. I was very tempted to go for Trailblaze into Power Whip, but really I just want the damage while I'm at full HP, especially because Iron Hands also can get Fake Out, and I didn't know if you would have that to break my Sturdy. And so I did just go straight for the damage, and Ice Punch is not enough to bring me down to my Sturdy. And here I was like, should I just go for another Power Whip to take this thing out? Is he going to swap out into something? What's going to happen here? I'm just going to switch out is what I ended up doing, because I really thought that he would go for another offensive move, and I could bring in my Palisand with the Rocky Helmet and have him take that recoil damage. Unfortunately, he just ends up swapping out to his Ogerpon expecting the grass type move, which I was very surprised by, because Ogerpon would have still taken a ton of damage from a fully offensive Power Whip, especially boosted with the Cornerstone Mask there. But I digress. He's in a great position here. I kind of have to swap out, so I decided to stay in and go for a Shadow Ball, thinking he would have a really free U-turn here. But he surprises me and goes for Spikes, and that means that my Ogerpon is now dead on arrival, unfortunately. I really didn't want to see those spikes right there. I thought for sure he would U-turn, which is why I stayed in. And I could have swapped out and even brought in my Ogerpon right there. So here, thinking that he was going to go for more spikes, I decided to go out into my Archaludon. But this is where he decides to go for the U-turn. So I could have just stayed in and gone for the Scorching Sands or the Shadow Ball once again, because this basically invites in the Ursaluna Blood Moon for free. And if he, I don't know, I guess that was kind of a 50-50, but I figured he would keep on putting up spikes, and I just got that. I got the plays completely reversed on those 2 turns there. But that was my thinking. First, I was like, okay, he's going to swap out here, so I can go, he's going to U-turn, so I'm going to go for the Shadow Ball, thinking he's going to bring in the Iron Hands or something else like that. But anyways, it does not matter, because now we're having to face down this Blood Moon, and Blood Moon has very high special attack, and so we need to switch out immediately. I do decide to sacrifice my Ogerpon here to the spikes. If I had stayed in on that Earth Power, it would have killed my Archaludon immediately. So I'm happy that I did swap out. Ursaluna could have also very easily gone for the Blood Moon right there. That also would not have been very good for anything trying to take it on my team. Now, because I was able to outspeed the Iron Hands underneath webs, I'm thinking that I'll be able to outspeed this Ursaluna as well, even though I'm at -1 speed. I did decide to go for the knockoff instead of the flower trick, and I really should have gone for flower trick. My opponent swaps out and brings in their iron hands, and this knockoff does nothing, whereas flower trick, Choice Bandit would have KO'd it, and I would have been able to put on at least a little bit more pressure. But now we're in a position to where I can't really do anything, because another knockoff will not finish off the iron hands. So I go back out to my Palisand, and I'm hoping that he just goes for Ice Punch, trying to hit what's in front of him. But he makes a great call and goes for close combat, because that would hit what was in front of him, and that hits me trying to swap in. And it does look like I might be able to take one. It might be a roll. I am max defense on this Palisand. And so I go for Shore Up, hoping that I can take one more hit. He goes for Thunder Punch instead of close combat, and that is able to finish off my Palisand. But just like what the Araquid did, we get a double down. Thank you, Rocky Helmet and Palisand, for taking this thing out. Man, I love double downs. They are delicious. But we are down to our last 3 Pokemon, with Alera Spikes Up and Sticky Web on my side and just the Stealth Rock on his side of the field. For the remaining Pokemon in this match, there are a few different things here. So number one, I was pretty sure he was going to go back out to his Ogerpon here, and I knew I could take a hit from the Ogerpon and maybe do some major damage with my Primarina. I also knew I could take any hit from the Iron Treads if he ended up going to Iron Treads. He does end up going to Iron Treads, and so I did like that better than the Ogerpon, because here I was like, okay, I can definitely live a couple of Earthquakes, and if he goes for Supercell Slam, then I can also go into my Archaludon. Now, I admit that I underestimated how powerful Iron Treads is. I don't calc that much during battles. It tends to distract me when I'm trying to calc and do things. And I was already doing these battles underneath kind of I'd say a weakened mindset overall when I was battling. Supercell Slam does a ton of damage, and so I get back a little bit of HP. And I did decide to calc it. And from what I was looking at, it looked like that Earthquake would not KO my Primarina from the range that I was at. And so I was like, he's got to go for another Supercell if he wants to KO. And so I switched into Archaludon thinking that he had to go for Supercell Slam. But he didn't. He could have just gone for Earthquake. And so Earthquake covered the switch into my Archaludon, which sucks. And that also would have been enough to finish out the Primarina. So really the play there was to stay in with Primarina and then get a fresh switch into something else. But me thinking I could get a free stamina boost by going into my Archaludon on the Supercell Slam is why I swapped out there. So massive misplay, and that's basically going to lock up this endgame here. I could still do a good amount of damage with Choice Banded Meowscarada, but at the best I might be able to KO a Pokemon or two, but it's not. I would need to be able to switch my moves up in order to really clinch the end game there. So here we can see that the Earthquake was going to be enough damage to finish off my Primarina, and then that does just leave the Meowscarada. I had to know, but of course I guess the second time that I swapped it in too, I took the Spikes damage as well. So if I stayed in, I would have had more HP to take that move too, instead of coming back in on Spikes and sacrificing my Archaludon for no reason. So just a series of misplays in the end game here, really not a good look. But that being said, I really enjoyed the battle. There were a couple of 50-50s just throughout the first part of the battle to where I was just like, I could have done those a little bit better. But I do believe if I had nailed any of those 50-50s, we could have been looking at a very different outcome overall here. So thank you very much, Travesty, for the battle. Everyone, please go check them out. You'll see their information in the description. And we're going to be moving on to battle number 3 tomorrow. So come right back here tomorrow to see that matchup. And I appreciate you all watching today. Have a good night, everyone.